Elected to Congress in 1998. He is known for his advocacy on economic development, foreign affairs, and financial services. Congressman Meeks is the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, making him a key voice on international relations. He is also a senior member of the House of Financial Services Committee. Throughout his career, he has focused on expanding economic opportunities, advocating for civil rights, and strengthening U.S. global alliances. Congressman Meeks has served our community for the last 13, 14, 15, 16, I don't know how many years. But I can tell you just from a personal experience of working with him that he is committed to our community. He has always championed us as a people. He is committed to taking care of his constituents in his district, which is the 5th Congressional District. I don't have anything else to say except welcome to our Congressman.
Afternoon, just was checking the time. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. It is so good to be with all of you today. What a great day it is as we celebrate Constance Baker Motley. Truly a hero. But we also want to be thankful to Manny Kaufman for all the work that he does. For everything that he does for this community and he's done with the Postal Service. Manny, we love you. We appreciate all of the work. In this community, I don't know, we got a great community. Manny has dedicated his life to trying to make sure that this community is and gets and does what it rightfully deserves, and he puts his whole heart into it. And I think that's one of the reasons why all of you are here today, because Manny made sure that happened. And I just want to thank him straight out for what and I got to tell you what he means to me. Because when I need to consult or talk about something, Manny is an individual that I always call and consult and work with. Thank you, Manny Kaufman. And right around him, and I know they were mentioned, but I want to ask every member of the CAC to stand up. Every member of the CAC to stand up. And why this is important is because they are doing this when they're working with the post office, not for themselves. They don't get paid money. They didn't do anything. It's for you and us. They want to make sure that the Postal Service is delivering to the people of Southeastern Queens. They deal with the headaches and the problems, and they advocate on behalf of this community. They are working hard every day to make sure that we hold and you get your mail on time, and any headaches and problems that we are able to remedy. I want to thank you for all that you do on behalf of this community. Thank you for your service. Mr. Peralta, welcome and thank you as being our Jamaica Postmaster. We know that we will have open dialogue and conversation as we've had with your predecessors, and we know that that relationship will continue to build. Now, we also know, and I don't want to go on this tangent too much, but we know that somebody else does not want you to exist. They want to privatize the Postal Service. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to make sure we stand up for something that is part of American history for a long period of time. And so we want to thank you for all that you have done. And I also need to make sure that we sing a little song. Now, we got two versions of this song, and I'm not going to sing because I see my wife screaming, I should sing. But today is a special day because our own June Bunch is celebrating her birthday. Some people say, ask her how old she is. But all I can tell you, June, stand up. Let's say happy birthday to District Leader June Bunch. Say, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear June. Happy birthday to you. June is committed, you know, and if any of y'all are in her area, you'll get these robocalls keeping you up to date on what's going on in our communities. And I thank June, and I love her so very, very, very much. And I also want to acknowledge, because when I walked in, you know, I was stopping and I was talking. I want to apologize to some of the tables in the back because I couldn't get there in time. But I want you to know that I want to try to get there so we can greet and talk, because as people were whispering in my ear in the front, one of the things I kept hearing, is your wife here? Is she coming? Well, I want to acknowledge my wife is here. I thank her for all that she does and all that she continues to do and to be in my life. It's very important that we're here today to honor Constance Baker Motley. Some in our government now do not want to acknowledge people of color. In fact, they want to erase history. They want to change it. But when you think about the life and times of Constance Baker Motley and all the things that she had to go through and how she endured and moved and made us all proud, what we're telling that guy now that lives in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is, we're ready for a moment like this.
All right.
We're not tired. We're not going to bow down to any king. And we're going to live in the legacy of Constance Baker Motley. Because just think about her. And we're thinking about the times that we live. She was born in 1921. Think about what was going on in America in 1921. Think about the injustices that was taking place. Think about how an African American woman had all of the odds against her. Think about the fact that people would reject folks simply because of their sex and their color. And when it came to that, Justice Baker Mosley would say, I reject the notion that my race or sex would bar my success in life. Focused and moving. And who did she hook up with first? Another African American who created American history, none other than former Supreme Court Judge Thurgood Marshall. Yes. So they hooked up and worked together. Justice Baker Motley decided at the age of 15 she was going to be a lawyer. You know, I think about that with myself sometime. I can recall all of my life. I showed my daughters, you know, I got a little autograph book at home of when I was in junior high school. And, you know, that's when all the kids, some of y'all my age, graduated, you had to sign, you had your classmates sign, and you put all your things in there. And in my book, you know, it says, what did you want to be when you grew up? And I put in there, attorney. And I'm proud to say that not only I wanted to be an attorney at a specific university because of Thurgood Marshall, an attorney from Howard University. And so, when I think of the life story of Constance Baker Motley and her focus and of understanding what her purpose was in life from the age of 15, hooking up with Thurgood Marshall, then working with the NAACP, fighting to make sure that we make America better and more inclusive and bringing folks together. she was one that when she went into the courtroom, those on the other side started sweating because they knew of the excellence that she was bringing. She was in that courtroom against all odds.
When the Christmas
Not because she was just a black woman, because of her excellence. She moved cases and won cases that folks thought could not be won. One of the most dynamic and historic attorneys in the history of the United States of America. And what was noticed, we were fortunate, those of us from New York, that she was right here. 1964, before civil rights and voting rights for African Americans throughout this country, she was elected to the legislature here in New York State. How difficult that must have been. Because when she went up to Albany, there were very few women, less known African American women, less known anybody of color. But she was of such a nature and mover that from there she quickly became the first African American and the first woman elected as the borough president of Manhattan. Before Percy, before David. We've got to understand history today more importantly than ever. Because some want to erase it. And that's why this recognition today and what the Postal Service is doing and having a stamp. Because when you are part of these presentations and you have a stamp in your presence, it acknowledges that this is not just African American history or black history. This is American history. And no one can erase what we've done to make America better. We are part of this country. We've made it better. We've created and built this country, and we're not going to let anybody ever take that away from us. Her legacy. We live on. I've got 3 daughters and 4 granddaughters. And we've got to make sure that those that were before us that paved the way, I look at what I've done and what others in this room, especially Judge Brathwaite Nelson. When I think of our predecessors, when I think of the work of Constance Baker Motley, they had to clear the way because there was a lot of obstacles in the way. There was a lot of things. It was like going through a wild jungle and all kind of hatred. But they had their machetes and they cut it down so that someone like me and Judge Brathwaite Nelson would have a path. They didn't have a path. When I came along, because of her sacrifices and because I wanted to be alone, she created a path. And that's what this is all about today, is to make sure that path that was created by those before us stayed cleared for those behind us. And as we celebrate Women's History Month, as we celebrate the United States of America, there is no way that it would be what it is today, but for the struggles, the fight, and the victories of great women like Constance Baker Motley. So, my friends, when I think of our next speaker, I want to close on this because as I went on the tables, folks are all talking about, because I would be remiss if I didn't just say something quickly about what's taking place in Washington, D.C. And I know folks are upset. And I know folks are nervous. I know folks know that we are, feeling funny about where we are headed in this country. The Constitution at stake. Just today, question of whether or not the President of the United States will adhere to the court system, the judge's orders. This is not a time for us to back up. This is a time for us to go forward and fight. It's a time for us to get ready for this battle. And I want you to know that those of us in Congress, those of us, we're not sitting back, people are asking, what are you doing? What's the plan, etc. It's only been 50 days. But just as Constance Baker Motley won and made a difference in court, we're winning our cases in court today. We're going to win them tomorrow, and we're going to stand together and make sure that Hakeem Jeffries becomes the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. Right. And I got to tell you, he stood up and fought. Those of us in the House side, every Democrat on the House side, with the exception of one, voted to stop this bill that the Republicans put forward. So the fight has just begun. And with your strength, I get my power not because I'm Gregory Meeks. I get my power because of you. The power that I have and any elected official has comes from the people. You and your voices and standing up gives me the power that I have. And I got to tell you, that power that we have, working with my little brother, Hakeem Jeffries, we're going to continue to fight until we win and change and keep America moving on the right path, because we're not going back. A woman who I'm so proud of because of all of her accomplishments right here in Queens. Working as an attorney, making a difference, talking to people on the ground, following the model of Constance Baker Motley. Someone that I'm so proud of because when I watched her first, before she became a big-time judge, she was working and getting things done in this community because she loves this community. And it's because of the work that she did before she was a judge, is why the community decided to make sure she became a judge, because you need someone on the bench who is going to hold up justice and do the right thing. And so, with Judge Valerie Braithwaite Nelson, she's moved her ways up the ranks from civil court to Supreme Court, and now to the appellate division in the courts in the state of New York. And she does us proud. I always stick out my chest when I get to see and hear about the work that she's doing on that appellate division, the decisions that she's making, the work that she does. She's untiring, making sure that justice is had. So it is my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to bring up the Honorable Judge Valerie Braithwaite Braithwaite. I don't know how I messed that up. Braithwaite Nelson. Judge. I want to say we honor you and thank you because you make us all proud with the work that you do each and every day.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that introduction, Congressman Meeks, my good and dear friend. And it's Braithwaite. We've been friends much too long. That's okay. Thank you to everyone who's here. It is so important that we come together to honor our trailblazers and our heroes. So, thank you. Thank you for coming out, Southeast Queens and the Queens communities. You always come out at the right time. I want to thank also, in addition to the Congressman Manny Kaufman, thank you so much for extending this invitation on behalf of this community. I greatly appreciate it. And a shout out to all of my friends and relatives in the audience. My cousin Sharon Smith is here. I think my niece Cheryl Mullen is here, and some other family members. And thank you also to my pastor, Reverend Sully from St. Gabriel's Church, who's present. Stand and be acknowledged.
That's right. And
Reverend Sully. Thank you for coming. Happy birthday, June Bunch. We go back a long way. May God continue to bless and keep you.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, heroes. Let's talk about them. What do they do? Heroes pave the way for others. We refer to our heroes as trailblazers, especially our heroes who pioneered and engineered the civil rights movement. We say that our heroes removed barriers. We say that they tore down obstructions to justice and that they destroyed inequality. Our heroes dismantled impediments that others could follow. They placed themselves often in harm's way, showing bravery, courage, and determination. When given the choice of remaining silent and accepting comfort for themselves and their families, they chose not to do so. Our heroes said, "Oh no, the work has to be done. There's much more work to be done." So they rejected comfort and they chose instead to fight for justice, standing up for what's right and what is fair. Our heroes took a firm stand on the front lines where there was personal danger. They took the lead in the struggle for social change, and they stood strong for the values that we all believe in this room. Our heroes we treasure, and we know that because of their work, America was changed. Judge Constance Baker Motley is a treasure. She changed America. She was just a high school student in the 1930s when America was racially segregated. And this country, as she observed, had separate waiting rooms in bus and train stations. There was separation at water fountains, bathrooms, in elevators. Building entrances were separate. Even cemeteries were racially segregated. African Americans were denied entrance to white-only restaurants. Black children were forced to attend schools that were separate and apart from their white counterparts. And the black schools were poorly funded, providing an inferior education. Black people were denied access to quality education at all levels. They were denied decent housing, and they were forced to face only a future of perpetual poverty. African Americans were excluded from employment opportunities, and often, when employed, they earned lower wages and they had inferior working conditions than their white counterparts. And so, my dear friends, it was that during this period of time, during racial segregation, that a young girl, then known by the name of Constance Baker, was a high school student. She was the daughter of West Indian parents who had immigrated to America. This was also a time period of the Depression in the 1930s. And living conditions in America were even worse for Black families. And amidst all of this, young Constance Baker determined that she would help to reshape America, that she would help to dismantle racial segregation, that her life would stand for progress, for hope, and for change. And so, she first attended historic Fisk University in Tennessee, and then New York University, where she graduated in 1943. Now, a college degree for a Black woman at that time in 1943 in itself was extraordinary. It was an extraordinary accomplishment because segregation continued to flourish. Racism continued to flourish. Constance Baker went on to attend Columbia Law School and graduated with a law degree in 1946. Now again, we're talking about 1946. Not only did she graduate from college with a bachelor's degree, but to be accepted and enter a university and study law, intending to become a lawyer, was again remarkable, extraordinary. The forces in America were against her. She looked those forces straight in the eye and continued to go forward, knowing that she was going to reshape America. History books do not tell us if she realized at that time that she was about to change the course of events for America. But in fact, that is what she was about to do. She became a staff attorney for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and she used her legal skills to fight housing discrimination. When Black veterans returned from World War II, they found a Black woman lawyer ready and willing to fight for their rights, and she did just that. She traveled throughout the segregated South, often risking her life, often traveling without having the opportunity to eat for long periods of time because restaurants on the road in the South would not permit her to enter because of the color of her skin. She provided, as she traveled through the South, legal representation to African Americans in school, in universities, and in employment. She helped develop the civil rights laws upon which we stand firmly today. She worked with then attorney Thurgood Marshall in the 1950s, which resulted in the US Supreme Court, the highest court in this land, declaring that segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. In later years, Constance Baker Motley would become the first Black woman to argue before the US Supreme Court. And as we all know, Thurgood Marshall would become the first African American to become a justice of that high court, the US Supreme Court. When Martin Luther King was arrested in 1963 in Birmingham, Alabama, and wrote the famous letter from the Birmingham jail, Constance Baker Motley was his lawyer. Later, she went on to protect marchers in Selma, Alabama, who protested on Bloody Sunday, and she joined that march, risking her own life, along with those that she represented. Then, back here in New York, she became the first Black woman to be elected to the New York State Senate, and also to serve as Manhattan Borough President. Later, in 1966, she was appointed by President Johnson as a federal judge on the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, and she became the first woman to serve in that position. But she went on. In 1982, she became the first woman ever appointed as Chief Judge of the United States Court for the Southern District of New York, a federal court. As a federal court judge, Judge Baker Motley presided over federal cases, including cases interpreting the Constitution of the United States and other cases of national importance. She passed away in 2005 at the age of 84. She led an exemplary and extraordinary life and was a champion and a hero of civil rights. She was the first in so many respects. By being a first, she made it possible for others to have opportunities and to succeed. And by doing so, she changed America forever. I grew up in Hollis, New York. I attended PS 134. I attended IS 192. And I attended Andrew Jackson High School.
Yeah.
I went on to attend Syracuse University, graduated with honors in 3 years, and then I was accepted to George Washington University Law School, and I graduated from that school with a Juris Doctor degree. I tell you that story because I want you to understand. I'm from this community. I was educated in this community. I attended the churches in this community. I participated in all of the organizations of this community. And this is a great community. It gives rise to people that can go far in life. I thank all of you for being part of my background. You have all helped to make this possible. I now sit as an associate justice on the New York State Appellate Court known as the Second Department Appellate Division. This is the busiest appellate court in the United States. My court handles most of the appeals for the entire state of New York, and it covers more geographic areas of the state of New York than any other appellate court. I decide cases from Queens County, Kings County, Suffolk County, Nassau County. I swing into Staten Island and decide those cases. Then I decide cases from Westchester, Rockland, Orange, Dutchess, and Putnam counties, upstate New York. All in all, my jurisdiction spans for 10 counties of this state. Young people should see with their own eyes what they can become. If you can see it, you can achieve it. You can be it if you can see it. If you can see a role model, you can become a role model for others. If a child grows up in the presence of a role model, that child can become a role model and can help other children to do the same. When I was a child growing up in Southeast Queens, there were no black female judges from Queens on the appellate court where I sit today. In fact, there were very few black female lawyers that I saw in Southeast Queens. In 2016, I became the first black woman appointed to the appellate court from Queens County in the 122-year history of that court. However, although I didn't see walking the streets of Southeast Queens when I was growing up, female Black attorneys. I clearly saw Constance Baker Motley. I saw this Black woman lawyer who went on to become the first woman on the federal court, a federal judge. Not only did I see her, but everyone in PS 134, everyone in IS 192, everyone in Andrew Jackson High School saw this Black woman becoming a federal judge. My parents taught me about her in discussions in our home. We talked about her in the community. We talked about her at our Girl Scout meetings. And sometimes, depending on the teacher, we talked about her in classroom. And when we talked about the judge, we could see her. And we talked about being able to visualize this Black woman sitting on the bench. We talked about her because we believed that we too could become what she had become. Because we could see the judge, we knew as children that we could become judges, just like she had become a judge. Because we saw the judge, that she had graduated from college and then graduated from law school, because we saw that she had become a lawyer and that she had used her legal skills and talents to make life better for other people, because we saw that the President of the United States, Lyndon Johnson, had appointed her as a federal judge, we knew that the doors in the legal profession had been opened to us. I knew as a child that the judge would hold those doors open for me and for others to pass through, and that her only expectation was that we would come through those doors and then give back to our community, and that we would become models for other young people, and that this cycle of giving back would keep repeating and never end. I was a first in Queens County because the judge was the first in the nation.
All right, all right.
She paved the way for success, and that road will never be destroyed. Her work will never be undone. And today, my dear friends, we, the members of this community, remember Judge Constance Baker Motley as the first, as a trailblazer, a civil rights leader, a wife, a mother, a lawyer, a judge, and a scholar who lived an extraordinary life. She was a leader who used her achievements to impact the lives of others and to change history forever. We are thankful for the U.S. Postal Service acknowledging this great leader with this commemorative stamp. I thank all of you again.